Welcome to another episode of the All Pop No Culture podcast. I'm your host for what I like to call the guys getting lost. My name's Kevin. This week we have Pete and Andy on, and we will be discussing episodes 5 and 6 of season 1, White Rabbit and House of the Rising Sun. House of the Rising Sun is a Jin and Sun episode. White Rabbit is a Jack episode. And so we're going to have a lot of discussion primarily around White Rabbit. We find that House of the Rising Sun is an interesting episode, but doesn't seem to have as much impact as maybe White Rabbit does. And we go on a few tangents about Lost as it was delivered at its time versus how TV shows are created now and what might be the difference if Lost was created today. So sit back, listen, and enjoy. If you are watching along, make sure you watch the episodes first. Enjoy the discussion. And next week, we will watch episodes 7 and 8, which will be The Moth and Confidence Man. All right, enjoy. Yeah, I would say real quick, since Andy wasn't here, not to jump the gun too far, but what was since you weren't here last week, what was your take on episodes 3 and 4? So you're looking at the Kate episode and the Locke episode.
I was thrown for a loop figuring out that the bald guy, it's Locke, right? That's the bald guy.
Yep.
That he was in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely, I was not expecting that. I didn't think that was going to be the case. And to learn that, what it made me think about is like the MK Ultra stuff. How the US back in the day was giving people LSD and seeing what they did with it.
Jesse Eisenberg was great in that fucking movie.
Yes. So I don't know anything. I've never watched Lost. I've never read about Lost. I don't know anything about it at all. So watching 3, 4, 5, 6, it made me think like, is this just an experiment on people and trying to see what they would do in the situation? It made me think like Locke probably still is in a wheelchair somewhere, which is doped up on drugs, and the main guy, the leader,
Jack.
Yeah. Like,
Jack.
Jack trying to figure out his dad's situation is all about, him trying to resolve those things again, all through some sort of government experiment. I can't say that I'm totally locked in now, but watching and most time I was listening to those. I was in the kitchen while I was cooking, and I had it on the TV and listening to most of it. But I'm curious to see what's going to happen, because it doesn't, to me, it seems like it's just a big government experiment to see how they're going to figure it out. But I really liked it a lot. Like, I stopped myself from watching seven today. I wanted to keep watching. I had like another hour and a half of cooking to do, and I wanted to watch 7 and 8, but I stopped myself just to stay current with our conversation. But I really liked it a lot.
Yeah. I think, like I said in last week's episode 4 is the one that is credited with being the episode that hooked like everybody that was watching, right? So when the whole Locke thing goes down, I think that episode leads into episode 5 really well, into the White Rabbit, because you get, you had the Kate episode, which was fine, and it was a good episode, and Kate was, whatever, but like, there's nothing shocking about Kate in that episode. Like, other than she was the criminal, like, as far as you've seen there, she didn't do anything bad.
Right.
She gets arrested. She cares about the dude that turned her in. Like, everything about that episode is like, Kate's done something wrong, but she's a good person.
Yeah.
And that's what you've kind of seen up until that point. With Locke, you get all kinds of information. Like, you are hurled into Locke's world. And like I said last week, it's this de-evolution of a character from beginning to end in his flashbacks, where for the very first time you see him, he's the colonel or whatever, and then no, he's just a dude at his desk, and then he's just a dude in the lunchroom that's getting crapped on, and then his life sucks even more because his fake girlfriend doesn't want to do anything with him because she's not, she's just a sex worker, and then he's crippled. Like, you go down this line, and he gets piled on. So much is revealed through Locke as a character there. And so when you start the next episode, the Jack episode called White Rabbit, is very much the same sort of thing. You get Jack in this series. You get where he's coming from and kind of why he is who he is, right? Because in the very beginning, the one thing that always drives me crazy is that they chose to cast a kid as Jack and open the scene with him opening his eyes, and the kid has brown eyes and Jack has blue eyes. That kid, I don't think, is ever on the show again. They could have cast any kid they want, and they cast a kid with brown eyes and open up on his eyes. Like, this is the only scene in the whole fucking movie, in the whole fucking show. I was like, come on, guys. It's like, you started here, it should be the right color. But anyways, so it's all about him, not backing down when his friend's getting his ass kicked. So he gets his ass kicked, right? And then it cuts back to the island, and of course, immediately Jack is playing the hero. Somebody's drowning, goes out, saves him. Turns out it's Boone, and you start to see him making the choices that you pointed out before, Pete, is like the triage choice, right? Like, there's a girl drowning, he's got Boone, he knows he's got Boone, so you have to save the person you can save.
Yeah.
And then you try and save the other person, and so they don't. And so they make reference to the survivor count later in that episode, how it's gone down one, right? And he's really hard on himself, talking about how he never even spoke to her, this girl that drowned. Like, he didn't know anything about her, he never took the time to get to know her, and it's been for like 5 days, right? And he hasn't been sleeping, and so yeah, it's really interesting. And there's some really good stuff in the beginning of this one. They start to talk about they started talking about the water issues, that we talked about when we talked about the pilot episode. But yeah, they had a stash of water, and that is depleting very quickly. And from the standpoint of realism, I totally agree that they probably did not have enough water to make it 4 days with 40 people, realistically, versus what they did. But it's a TV show, you have to let that stuff slide, because you can't, at least in the beginning. It's like if you watch 24, Jack Bauer never goes to the bathroom,
right?
Like,
ever. Yeah.
So you just kind of, there's things that you have to let go when you're watching TV, because it doesn't fit into a narrative until it fits into a narrative,
Totally. And like I guess that once, and I guess that's why it was the hook. Like, like, I think that's part of the deal, is that once you find out that Locke got on that plane in a wheelchair, and he's now in the jungle killing fucking boars, it sets in motion that the rules of our reality don't necessarily work here. This could, like, the doors for the weird metaphysics of it all working are just open now. So I'm like, okay, this could go anywhere. I really dug White Rabbit.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
really, really cool episode. I love how loves Locke's talk with him about his father and that just the way that's what was working.
What if this person that you're chasing is really here?
That's impossible.
Even if it is, let's say it's not.
And what happens when I catch him?
I don't know.
Once he gets to the coffin and he like destroys the coffin because he sees that his dad's not in the coffin, so that means that what he was seeing was actually his dad, sort of. Was it? Do we think? We don't know. It's possible zombie dad is walking around the island. It's just an empty coffin. I know, fuckstick. It's another mystery, but Jack seems to be content with it at that point. Like, he has that reckoning, that moment, and it clearly at that point then he establishes and takes the reins as the head of the basically like the leader.
Yeah,
he's gonna start organizing people.
Yeah, I think there's a point in the episode where Boone says to him, and he's like, well, who appointed you leader of whatever?
Who appointed you our savior, huh? What gives you the right?
And it's true. Like, nobody really did. He just was, like, everybody was just following him and listening. And then later on, Locke makes a comment about, you can't lead if you don't know where you're going. And Jack, up until this point, is the reluctant leader because when you're watching the flashbacks, his dad tears him down. Like, his dad, you don't have what it takes, all this stuff. Like, his dad is a real piece of work. The funny thing is that so you start to see his dad in this episode, and the guy that plays his dad will play his dad again later on in flashbacks and stuff. So he is the actor that plays his dad. But in the first 2 episodes where we see him on the beach in the distance, was a different actor. They hadn't cast him officially until that point. And I don't know what the reasoning was, but it was somebody else. But then once he was following her in the jungle, obviously it was him. But it was interesting to find out that his dad was a raging alcoholic, and is the whole reason that Jack was in Australia in the first place, right? So his reason was going to get his dad and then coming back. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that happened in this episode, and like I said, you understand where Jack's coming from, why he's a reluctant leader, why he is the way he is, because his dad didn't ever treat him like he was good enough. But yeah, I think it's a really good episode. I love the ending of it, and Lost fans everywhere will know what you mean if you say we have to learn to live together or we're going to die alone, right? Like, that's like one of the pivotal Lost lines.
Last week, most of us were strangers. But we're all here now. And God knows how long we're going to be here. But if we can't live together, we're going to die alone.
But I think these 2 episodes, with the one from last week and then this one, you're looking at 2, obviously 2 major characters, and just by the backstories that they have, right? It was good.
I think it perfectly segues into the next episode. With Jack talking about moving into these caves now that they found water. They found Adam and Eve. These 2 people. That's in the 5th one, yeah.
Yeah,
the
6th one.
5th and 6th, yeah.
So they found Adam and Eve, and we don't know who these people are, but Jack says they've been there forever, but they were obviously living there, you know, they go and they start kind of politicking. Him and Saeed. Or is it him and Saeed?
Yeah.
Yes, him and Saeed that disagree. Saeed said he's not ready to give up. I think Sawyer's the same way. Like he wants to stay at the beach. And Kate, like there's a wedge driven between him and Kate because Kate's staying at the beach, and he starts the emotional pull on Kate of what happened to you.
Yeah,
So
you had your chance. Yeah.
This is where now, though, this is one of those situations in the show where like I do get a little more like Andy's initial questioning, especially like with everything trying to get water. Why don't you just like build a shelter at the beach and have rotating shifts of people manning the fire at the beach, and then everyone else can live back at the water? Like
that's the thing is like Sawyer makes the best probably point around that, is that just having the fire maybe isn't enough. Like you still need somebody to recognize that, and you don't want to be the person that doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, the beach isn't necessarily a bad place to be. You just need to know that your extra work is going and getting your water and coming back, right?
Okay, so all of those things are true. Here's reality. And not that I'm a prepper, I'm not a prepper, but I'm an outdoorsman.
Whatever, go bag.
Yeah, I don't have a go bag. But like, to
10 G's in cash, a Glock, your passport. That shit's in the hall closet. We know.
It's in my safe. Come on now. But no, really what they should do, to my comments in the first 2 episodes were like, why are you doing this without water? The last 4 episodes were more accurate to me. Like, yeah, okay, now you got to start rationing food. You got to think about water. You got to think about all these things. Like, no, you should live in that cave. We're at Adam and Eve are. You should have a team that, 2 people every day goes to the beach, and you're tending the fire, and everybody else is where the water is. And you do the dam, so you have fresh water all the time. Like, to me, that's how you would survive this. Like, you have a team, a rotational team that goes to the beach and make sure that your presence is there. Frankly, I would have another team that goes to another beach on the other side of the island. You know what I mean? I would have like 2 or 3 teams that are different spots.
And the gotcha there with this show too is that they're kind of pointing out that most people, especially when you're looking at those first couple of days, most people aren't that educated, right? You think when you crash, you have a black box and they're going to find you and they're going to come, right? So whatever you have should in theory be enough. You're on this island, everything's going to be fine. It's going to rain, you're going to get water. Sawyer makes that same line. It's not true. It's not going to rain and just bring you all the water you need, right? That's not how it works. But when you're in the shock of the accident, when you're not experienced, when you're just, a normal, person, the people that are going to know what to do are the Sawyers, maybe the Locks, the Kates, the people that have been through some stuff. But most people that live in, urban cities their whole life and don't go anywhere and don't do anything, don't know what they're prepping for. They don't know what to think about. And you just think you have enough because you've always had enough. If you're flying from Australia to Los Angeles, you're probably not poor.
No, you're not poor.
You've had everything you've needed.
Oh yeah,
all the time. So
you're flying direct from Australia.
Yeah,
for sure, bro.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that's not. I did that in 2019. That's not crazy expensive, but yes, you're correct. So real quick about this show, but just help me with the characters a little bit. So Kate, that's the wasp, right? Yeah.
It's a little white girl. Yeah, she's the yeah, she's the one that's in love. That's got the little thing with Jack right now.
Yeah,
no. she's the Wasp and Ant-Man the Wasp.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. It's Evangeline
Okay.
Lilly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then the heroin addict, that's
Charlie.
the dude. Yeah, Charlie. He's in Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then the dude that's like the white supremacist and kind of the asshole. Is he in
He's in
Game of
Yellowstone
Thrones?
now. No, he's not in Game of
Oh,
Thrones. He's
you're
in
right,
Yellowstone
he is in
now. He was
Yellowstone.
on a show called Colony. He's done a couple other things, but
He's
nothing
dead in
particularly
Yellowstone now,
huge.
but yeah, he's died off in Yellowstone now. But you're right, he is. He reminds me of the guy in that loses his hand in Game of Thrones. They look
Oh,
similar.
Yeah, a little bit.
Did Jack
But
go
not
on to
really.
do a little bit? Look closer. They look similar. Yeah. Did Jack go on and do anything else? I can't.
Not really.
I mean,
I know either during the filming of the show or after the show, like he got a DUI on the island. Like well, I say on the island, the actual island is Hawaii. Like he had some personal issues, and then I don't think he did anything until I think he was in Speed Racer. He was in a live action Speed Racer.
Yeah, he was.
And he played like a serial killer in something where he was just ripped, like 0% body fat, shredded. But otherwise, he hasn't done much. Like he really hasn't done a whole lot. But this show, I mean, he made enough money doing this show. He probably never has to work again.
Yeah, I mean, according to IMDb, he hasn't done anything since 2015. He was in a movie called Bone Tomahawk, which looks like a direct-to-DVD Western.
I don't think it was actually.
He was in World War Z.
Okay.
He was in the Alex Cross movie. Yeah, he was Picasso in the Alex Cross
that's
movie.
the one where
Okay.
he was super
Yeah,
ripped.
yeah. And then, wow, man. I mean, he was in this movie Emperor, but from 2010, he did a couple of things in 2012, and then World War Z in 2013, and then 2015, and then he's done like nothing.
Yeah,
since.
he did.
Well,
Party
in terms
Five
of
and he did Lost, and then he just, I think he burnt out on it. Like there's a bunch of pictures.
No, you know what
of
else?
him.
I'm sorry. No, this was earlier than that. Wait. No, this is years wise. Oh no, yeah, this is all stuff he did. I'm sorry, he did. Well, that's the thing. He did Speed Racer during Lost, and he did We Are Marshall during Lost.
Okay, that's right.
And he did Smoking Aces during Lost.
Right.
Yeah, he was just on. It was Party of Five, and then Haunted, and then he probably made the bulk of his movie earlier in his career.
Yeah, I think he spent some time after he had his troubles, kind of being a family man. There's a lot of pictures of him, around with his daughter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
After Lost. So I think he kind of refocused himself for a while, which is crazy to me because like I really haven't seen much else that he's done, and I never watched Party of Five. But I think he's great on Lost. Like I think he's like his acting ability on Lost is good. Like you think he would make it more or be making more stuff. So it must be a personal choice to not be acting right now.
Well, a lot like Pete said, I mean, listen, if I was on 6 seasons of Lost and 5 movies,
and Party of Five, which ran for a shit ton of seasons by itself,
and Party of Five, I have enough money for me to live, my kids to live, and probably my grandkids to live. So, I mean, why would I stress myself out? Like,
and he doesn't show up. I mean, who knows what he's actually like his net worth is, but he doesn't seem to show up in the news or entertainment stuff anymore, or anything like that. So I feel like he's living like a low key life anyway.
But I think I read somewhere that he didn't necessarily love acting. You know what I mean? He's not like that guy.
Well, he's directed a couple of things too.
Yeah,
it looks like.
Yeah.
But
so I think he made his money doing it and picked. I mean, he obviously picked the right shows, right? Party of Five, even though I didn't watch it, was pretty popular when it was on.
Yeah.
Went on to Lost, which is obviously very popular. So I mean, he made the right choices when he needed to make them. So, and then if he did 3 or 4 movies during Lost, they were paying him on his Lost credit, right? Like he was on Lost, he was a big deal, so he was probably making more money because he was recognizable. So he was doing all right.
Well, as of September of last year, the Sun, the U.S. Sun, reports that he did a bunch of stuff. It doesn't. Let's see. Yeah, no, that wasn't him. Never mind. It's just Tomahawk Rooter. Oh,
So,
and he's a keen photographer.
Well, Matthew Fox's net worth is $10 million. He's 55. He's 55 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He is 6'2" tall. I think that if I'm
he's got the huge wing.
If I'm 55 and I'm worth $10 million,
I'm pretty happy. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't need to go memorize lines anymore. I think I'm good just not doing that and living my life and doing all the things I want to do.
That's smart.
Yeah.
You know what? He was one of those guys that was like, I made some money and I cashed out. I'm not gonna do the whole I'm doing it for the art of acting.
That's the thing. Like if he didn't love acting, then he made all the right choices doing it to never have to do it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so good on him. Because Terry O'Quinn, the guy that plays Locke, he's been in stuff.
Yeah.
Like nonstop since Lost. Same with Evangeline Lilly. She's done, nonstop TV and movies since then.
And she's the MCU. And
she's funny because she shows up in the background of like 2 episodes of Smallville because it was filmed in Canada. This is before Lost. Like she shows up at just in the background opening a locker. But she tried really hard to make it. She made it, and then she kept going. But some of them don't. The girl that plays Claire hasn't done a whole lot. She did Once Upon a Time, and then kind of not really anything.
And Terry's only worth $8 million. So I mean, he's got some work to do.
But anyways, back to the show itself. Episode 6. Episode 6 is the House of the Rising Sun. And this is a Jin and Sun episode, and it's really interesting because they don't feel as pivotal at this point in the show as like a Locke or a Jack or a Kate, right? Like they've kind of been there, but a little off to the side. They honestly don't even feel at this point as pivotal as like a Saeed, right?
Yeah.
Like when Saeed stuff comes, you're going to be like, okay, what made this guy? But it is interesting to see, the first time we see Jin and Sun, he is working as a waiter. He has nothing. And they're in love, and he just wants to be with this girl, and she loves him. Like that's all it is, which isn't what it feels like on the island, right? Like on the island, it's got almost like this ownership feel, right?
Yeah.
And so, digging into the past, we find out that he wants to marry her. So he asks her dad for permission, and you get the idea that her dad is not the nicest dude, right? And so there's a line at one point, once he has gotten permission, he started working for her dad, that when he's washing the blood off of his hands, and she says, what do you do for my father? And he says, I do whatever he tells me to do. So you're like, oh fuck, this is like, Korean mafia, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
And so it's really interesting. It happens quickly, and you don't get the same development that you do with Locke, but you get to see Jin kind of devolve a little bit too, from this guy who just wants to be, happy and in love, to a guy that basically has sold his soul to be with the girl that he wants to be with, and in that process kind of loses her along the way.
Well, because I think she is the opposite of the spoiled little rich girl in some ways. Like she's obviously used to wealth. She walks in with the Chanel bags, but her dad was rich before that, right? So she's lived a life of privilege, and then she rolls in, and she's totally just like she just wants to love him, and he's now caught up in this life.
Hmm.
And it is interesting, like that she and this is where you're right. I think where definitely it's more of a gangster thing, because like I took the blood thing at first to be like, okay, that could mean, you know, maybe he just had to off someone, but maybe it's not a full on like gangster thing, until she felt like she had to go and hide, and the lady's advising her to, you know,
To disappear.
yeah,
Yeah.
disappear,
And,
wait long enough till people think you're dead.
yeah. And the other thing too is that at the end of that episode, or the end of that particular storyline, she can't leave him. Like, she still cares about him because she has the opportunity. She's there at the airport. It's 11:15 or 1:15 or whatever it
Oh
was.
yeah.
And she's walking towards the door, and she looks back, you know, and he has his, you know, his gentleman moment where he holds up the flower, you know, all that. And she can't do it. And so, you know, she still wants him to be the guy that he wants, right? This is kind of what you get from that.
So I
And
have
so-
a question.
Mhm.
And Kevin, this is solely for you. If this show was made today, would this be a Netflix limited series where they flushed out start to finish? Because I look at, I think about when this was aired, where they have a pilot and they have to see if people like it, and then they start making the shows, and then they develop these, you know, the scripts for these shows. I don't think that JJ at the pilot had 6 seasons written down.
It
So
didn't. I want to say that they had 3 seasons planned. And there's definitely some stuff in the middle where you can see that they
try to stretch.
They struggled a little. Yeah, they tried to stretch, and that was ABC saying, let's draw this out. Because when it ended, JJ came to them, or it might have been at that point, JJ might have been hands off by then, but it was Cuse and Lindelof came to ABC and said, we are ending at season 6. We know where we want to go. We want to end it the way we want to end it.
We want to tell the story and be done with it. And that's
yeah. We don't want to stretch it out. We don't want to waste time, because it is not a story that lends well to stretching, right?
No.
You need those things. But Lindelof and Cuse have said that if it was made today, it would have been, you know, a 13 episode season or a 10 episode season, for fewer seasons probably, and then knocked out. So it would have been an HBO or a Netflix or something like that. And if you want to see what these guys would have done, a fantastic show on HBO is The Leftovers.
Really?
It's the first season's a little weird, and I would definitely say to watch it after finishing Lost, because there's not any spoilers or anything, but there's a certain feel to it that I think if you watch all of Lost and try and figure out how you feel about Lost, and then you watch The Leftovers, there's very similar feelings, but I would argue that because it was a shorter show, and they, you know, knew what they were doing from beginning to end and all that, then in a few ways it's actually a more complete show, because they didn't have the limitations that they had on network television, and they didn't. No one was telling them to stretch it out and keep going and all that.
Do you guys think that shows like this can exist anymore? Like,
I don't think they can with 20 episodes. I don't think they can with 20 episodes.
TV's changed.
It has, right? Like, you can have sitcoms still, but you cannot have episodic shows anymore. I don't think.
Not that's this
like
good. You have the
this.
franchises. Like they just announced. I just saw it because I've been watching the Olympics. NBC's like teasing all their shows that are coming out. They're bringing back the original Law and Order. Because
they already brought back CSI, and then they brought back Grissom and what's her name, and then they're not coming back for the next season. I was like, dude, that's bullshit.
Why
Like,
exactly?
why do that?
But I mean, all the Chicago shows, the Dick Wolf shows, they all do that. They're all still like 22 episodes.
Those shows are okay because they're not a heavy drama, right?
Right.
Like we watch The Rookie, and I enjoy the shit out of The Rookie. I love Nathan Fillion, and that show can keep going because it doesn't have an overarching storyline that you have to complete. But on television, it's not made for that anymore. And what we're seeing is like, I've brought it up before, but when you're talking about a complete storyline and being done, look at the Haunting movie, the Haunting series, the Haunting of Hill House, the Haunting of Bly Manor,
Right.
Midnight Mass. You have a perfectly told 6-8 episode arc, and you're done. Like you're not committed to anything else. You don't need to be. Your story is done. You told it in a format that's longer than a movie, but you're not wasting time, money, and words, right? And that's why, like, The Leftovers is a good example, because I think it went 3 seasons, and for the type of show it had a very satisfying ending, and it was definitely a drama, right? But it had a point. It had to get somewhere and finish. And I think, like they said, if Lost was done today, it wouldn't have been 6 seasons of 24 episodes. It just wouldn't work. People aren't lining up for that. Like even Yellowstone. Yellowstone can keep going because it doesn't necessarily have an end in sight, but it still wouldn't lend itself to 24 episodes a season.
No way.
So
No way. It is so funny how we consume content today.
Mhm.
Because my son is on YouTube and watching 15-minute episodes of individual content all the time.
TikTok.
But, yeah, for sure. But if I were to have him sit down and watch this, he wouldn't have made it to episode 6. There's just not a chance. He wouldn't do it anymore. But he loves Yellowstone. He loves 1883. But because I think he knows that they have an end in sight. It's not Family Ties or all. What I mean. It's not like a show that's just going to go on forever. Like,
yeah, for as long as it can, and then just end.
Yeah, like House. Like we're gonna go until they cancel us. Like,
well, and
We're
that's,
not-
if
there's
you watch
there's
House,
there's no
was
through
great
line
for like 3 seasons, and then it started to fall apart the longer they tried to stretch it out. Because when House started, that show was fucking amazing.
Well, the problem was after the 3 seasons, it was like, okay, so the doctorals are all banging each other. House is this with the
A mess. He's a mess. He's a brilliant
whole
mess.
thing.
He's Sherlock Holmes.
Exactly, but it's like you either kept it going, or they tried it. They fell into, okay, we've been renewed past this 3rd season. Now we have to build in a through line that goes through, and so like the doctors who stayed on longer started to get more established storylines. House started the relationship with what's her bucket. It just all got very, very weird and all character developy.
Yeah, I think the show that was sort of maybe really the last great drama show like that on network television that kind of kept up the length was Fringe, and that was JJ's money too. But if you watch Fringe, it might have been the first few episodes, it might have even been the first full season, but they put so much money into it, Fox put so much money into it, that they had fewer commercials. I think the first episode might have aired without commercials at all. And that show, they knew what they were doing. They knew where they wanted to go. And so it has a fantastic ending for a network television show. It was 20 episodes a season, so it wasn't quite 24. And then, you get to the end of that, and you don't have those dramas anymore. You have the shows that are trying to do it, but they're not well made. So you have Manifest, which isn't that great. You have La Brea, which isn't that great. they're trying to have their drama and their mystery, but they're just not the same. And it's really unfortunate, I think, for shows these days, because they get compared to Lost so much. Like, everybody is looking for the next Lost. As soon as a show is a mystery that maybe is a little, supernatural or whatever, you always get this comparison to Lost. And I don't think it's fair, not because I think Lost is the greatest show and you can't compare, because it's a different time. And it's a different show. It doesn't have to be compared to the show, but everything's getting made differently now too. But the comparison that you can make between Lost and Manifest is the effort that went into make the actual episodes quality. Like, when I started talking about Manifest way back when we were, when we had everybody on the show, I always said, if you watch Manifest, watch the first couple of episodes. It feels like they went with the first take on everything. Like, nobody said we can do a second take and we could do this better. They just said, oh, you got your lines right, cool, let's go on to the next thing. It never really felt that good. Like, people that are on that show that I've seen that I know can act don't seem like they can act on Manifest. Like, it didn't work. But that's not because it's not compared to Lost. It's not as good as Lost. It just wasn't well made. So, but again, we went on a tangent here, but we can, we've kind of closed out the episodes anyways. We've seen what we need and talked about what we needed in episode 6 there, where we got everything from Jin and Sun at this point. The one thing we didn't say is that we did find out that Sun is a fluent English speaker.
Yes.
And she reveals that to Michael, who is now the only person on the island that knows that she speaks English. Her husband doesn't know. That's evidenced by the hotel room or the apartment scene where the girl's like, yeah, you can run.
The only bad part about me listening to the episode while I was in the kitchen cooking is every time there was like action sounds, I would like peek my head over and look to see what was going on, so that I paid attention to what was going on. Mm-hmm. But anytime they were speaking fucking Korean. Chinese or Korean, whatever the fuck they were doing,
you missed the whole.
Where the subtitles were on the screen, I'm like, I'm just to pretend like this is not that super important for me to know what it is. But
that was all super important.
Yeah, I know, because once you started speaking English, I peeked over. I'm like, oh shit, I think I should have paid attention to all that stuff. Yeah. So I'm hoping that her and her husband aren't like some super important pivotal characters in 4, 5, and 6 episodes, shared information that was so important and congruent to the rest of the episodes where I'm just fucked now. If that's the case, I'll go back and watch them again and read the dialogue. Yeah. But
I don't think you are. I think their exchanges on the island were basically, at one point she's like, well, let me go try and figure out how to get you out of this. And he's like, well, how are you going to do that? Because he thinks that she doesn't speak English. And she then has to back off because she can't tell him she knows English, because she knows English because she was going to leave him,
Right.
And so, he has no idea. So I don't think, I'm trying to think of what happened between them in this episode on the island. I don't think there's anything that is wildly pivotal that if you didn't rewatch this episode that you would necessarily miss.
I'm listening, and again, I peeked over my head. I just couldn't read I couldn't read the writing. Mm-hmm. I think with the music and watching what I did, I think I picked up on what was going on. Clearly the watch and everything like that, I paid attention. So I don't think I lost anything, but that is the one thing that I was like, fuck, should I have read all of those words? But I think that I picked it up.
Yeah, I think you're okay for now. Maybe next time, just try and pay attention, right, buddy?
Yes.
But the only other significant thing that I can think of that happened in this episode was that Locke took Charlie's heroin.
Yeah.
He took the last of his
yeah,
heroin
he did. He did.
and gave Charlie his guitar. He found Charlie's guitar, which is,
Yeah.
Locke has a very Locke moment, and then there's your shit. And
I
so
do like. I really do like. So I feel like, again, not knowing Lost at all, but also not living under a rock. I mean, Locke is the main character, right,
sure,
Kevin?
you
Okay.
want him to be the main character. He's your main character, buddy.
But I feel like, I mean, I feel like he's on the title card. Like, I feel like come episode or season 6, like he's the guy. He's the pivotal character. At least, again, from my remembering of the series and all these other things too. I do like the fact that he has been brought into this slowly, and it makes us feel like Jack is the person that we should all pay attention to. But really, again, if I'm right, I could be very well wrong, that really Locke is the person who is the pivotal character in this whole thing. So I do like the fact, if I am correct, that they have kind of brought this character in on the side and not rubbed our face in it, like, this is the guy you got to pay attention to, and more like, hey, we're just going to bring this guy around the back. Like, it's like a hidden ball trick. I dig it, and that's the case.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you anything, but but I mean, you can just you can tell that he's pivotal, and I know that going into the next 2 episodes, I feel like it's going to feel a little more like episodes 3 and 4, where I think the next episode is the one I'm thinking of. The backstory character doesn't necessarily feel as monumental as a Jack or a Locke episode, but then the one after that is pretty significant. And so we're looking. The 2 episodes are called The Moth and Confidence Man. And again, I feel like if you've been watching and paying attention, the Confidence Man episode title probably gives you an idea who that's about.
Is that Hurley or wait, is it The Confidence Man?
Just Confidence Man.
Just Confidence Man.
Yeah.
Because it almost sounds like something Hurley would be saying to himself to try and psych himself up. But then that's also Con Man.
Yeah. So I'll let you let that bake for a week, and then we'll watch that next week.
Oh,
yeah,
fucker. See,
yeah.
now I'm going to be up hella late watching that. Anyway.
Yeah. So, and I looked for some good trivia from these 2 episodes, and there wasn't a ton. So I'll have to do a little digging for next week's episode, see if I can get some more interesting stuff about the behind the scenes. It's funny that there's actually a few different bits of trivia, but they give away stuff that happens far later in the show, so I don't want to share those right now. But yeah, it's a good episode, and it's interesting to see, how some characters are left out. Like Shannon, Boone's sister, isn't really in these 2 episodes
at all.
Yeah. So
Rose isn't. Rose
really. Hurley isn't really in these 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Rose isn't there.
Sawyer's really not in either of them, I don't think much. Maybe 5 a little bit more, but in 6, like,
he's more at the end of 6. So he is.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's kind of moving into that stay on the beach party with Saeed and Kate. So I have a few little bits of trivia about those, but I think I have to wait, not next week, but the following week, to share those. It's not much, but it's just stuff that if I said it now, it would be, I don't know if it would give stuff away, but it would be less fun to know now than later. So that's our Lost talk. We will watch 2 more episodes next week, and next week we're going to have, in theory, everybody back.
Yeah.
So
next week will be a fun week. So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the next couple of episodes.
Yeah.
A little excited.